Welcome to the channel The Coin Merchant, and before you toss that pocket change into the jar, I need you to stop right now, because there is a 1984 D Washington quarter that could be sitting in your change dish, your car cup holder, or even rattling around at the bottom of your backpack, and the people who threw one away without looking, well, let's just say they might have made a very expensive mistake, because this seemingly ordinary quarter has a secret hiding inside its copper nickel surface, a secret that collectors are desperately chasing, and today we are going to reveal exactly what makes this humble little coin from the Denver Mint worth so much more than 25 cents to the right person. So keep watching, because what you learn in the next few minutes could literally change the way you look at every single quarter you ever touch again. So here is the big question: what is a 1984 D Washington quarter actually worth? Well, for most of the 546 million of them struck at the Denver Mint back in 1984, the answer is still just face value, but here is where it gets thrilling. The finest known examples of this coin have sold at heritage auctions for as much as $780 for a single MS67 graded specimen, and when you factor in notable error varieties from the same era, documented sales climb well above $1,200, which is not bad for something you could theoretically receive as change when you buy a bottle of water. Now you might be thinking, wait, 500 million of these were made, how can one be worth that much? And that is exactly the right question, because the answer is all about condition, errors, and the incredible rarity of perfect survival, and once you understand it, you will never look at a 1984 quarter the same way again. Let us start with some history, because context is everything. The year 1984 was a fascinating one for American coinage. The United States Mint was operating at full throttle, pumping out quarters by the hundreds of millions across its Philadelphia and Denver facilities to keep up with the enormous demand of American commerce, and the Denver Mint alone pressed 546,483,064 of these coins, bearing the distinctive small D mint mark just below George Washington's ponytail on the obverse. Now here is an interesting twist: prior to 1980, the Philadelphia Mint did not even use a mint mark on its quarters, so the addition of the P for Philadelphia and the ongoing D for Denver marked a new era of identification in United States coinage, and 1984 represents one of the first few years of this modern mint mark tradition. The coin itself features John Flanagan's iconic portrait of George Washington in left-facing profile, a design first introduced in 1932 to honor Washington's 200th birthday, with liberty arching above his head, "In God We Trust" to the left of his collar, and the date 1984 below, while the reverse carries the heraldic eagle with wings spread wide, clutching arrows and olive branches, the great American motto E pluribus unum above, and $quarter along the bottom rim. It is a beautiful design, and in pristine uncirculated condition, these coins absolutely glow with original luster. But hold on, because the next coin we are covering today has a story involving the most dramatic proof auction record in the entire Washington quarter series, and you will not believe the number, so stay with us. Now let us talk about what separates a common 1984 D quarter from a treasure, and it really comes down to three things: grade, errors, and survival rarity. Most of these coins went straight into circulation, bouncing around in pockets and cash registers for decades, picking up scratches, bag marks, and contact nicks that drag their grade down below the threshold collectors care about. An MS63 graded Denver quarter from 1984 might bring you $2, which is already 8 times face value. But the magic starts happening at MS65 gem grade, where a beautifully preserved coin with strong luster and only the most minor contact marks under magnification can bring $32 or more. At MS66 and above, you are now talking about elite territory where the value leaps to over $500, because finding a 1984 D in that condition is like finding a needle in a haystack the size of a football field, given how heavily these coins circulated. The highest recorded sale for a 1984 D Washington quarter graded MS67 at heritage auctions was $780 in 2019, and that is for a coin that literally looks brand new, as if it rolled off the Denver Mint press this morning. Can you imagine stumbling across something like that in an old coin collection or estate jar? Drop a like if you are suddenly feeling the urge to go check your coin jars, and subscribe to the Coin Merchant right now, because we are just getting started on today's journey through some of the most exciting Washington quarters ever discovered. Now let us get to the errors, because this is where things get really interesting for the 1984 series. Double die errors are among the most prized error types in numismatics, and they occur when the working die receives multiple impressions from the master hub at slightly different angles during the manufacturing process. The result is a coin where design elements appear doubled, creating a ghostly shadow of letters, dates, or Washington's profile that is clearly visible to the trained eye, and occasionally even to the naked eye on the strongest examples. On 1984 quarters, look carefully at the date digits and the "In God We Trust" lettering. Any doubling you can see without magnification is exactly what you want to find. Off-center strike errors are another dramatic category to watch for. These happen when the coin blank, called a planchet, is not perfectly centered between the dies when the press fires, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and a blank crescent-shaped area appears on the edge, almost like the coin is frowning at you. A minor 5 to 10% off-center 1984 quarter might bring $15 to $30, but a dramatic 50% off-center example where the date and mint mark are still legible. That is a genuine treasure valued at $100 or more, legend stuff, as they say in collecting circles. Clipped planchets, where the coin blank was punched too close to the edge of the metal strip, leaving a curved bite out of the rim, can sell for $20 to several $100s depending on how visually striking they are, especially when certified by PCGS or NGC. There is also the world of broad strikes, where the coin is pressed without the retaining collar in place, resulting in an unusually wide, thin coin with design elements spreading toward the edge like someone stepped on soft clay, and these sell consistently well because they are so visually dramatic. Wait until you hear what's next. The coin coming up after this segment has one of the most jaw-dropping proof records in Washington quarter history, and it involves the San Francisco Mint performing at its absolute peak. But let us talk about identification for a moment, because this is where you get to play detective. When examining any 1984 D quarter for potential value, the first step is to check the mint mark. That small d should appear clearly just below the knot of Washington's ribbon, and it should be sharp and clean with no obvious doubling or misplacement that might indicate a repunched mint mark error. Next, tilt the coin under a direct light source and watch the luster. On a truly uncirculated coin, the luster should flow smoothly and uninterrupted across the entire surface, like rolling silk under light, with no dead spots or dulled areas where contact wear has occurred. Even the slightest wisp of wear on Washington's cheekbone or the tips of the eagle's wings on the reverse will drop a coin below the all-important MS-60 threshold. Use a 10-power jeweler's loupe to examine the surfaces carefully. You are looking for any doubling on letters or design elements, any signs of die cracks, die cuts, or die gouges that might add premium value, and any planchet abnormalities that suggest an error coin scenario. The grading factor cannot be overstated in this hobby. A 1984 D quarter in MS-63 is worth perhaps $2, but the same basic coin in MS-67 is worth $780 because virtually no one managed to preserve these to that standard across 40-plus years of circulation, commerce, and storage. The PCGS and NGC population reports are eye-opening. The number of coins certified in the top tiers is remarkably small relative to the hundreds of millions originally struck, which tells the whole story of why high-grade survival is such a powerful value driver in modern Washington quarters. The collector market for 1984 D quarters remains active and healthy, driven by a growing community of modern coin enthusiasts who recognize that the series from 1982 to 1984 represents something genuinely special. These were the years when the U.S. Mint did not include coins in standard mint sets, which means fewer coins were preserved by collectors in original mint fresh condition compared to surrounding years, creating a pocket of relative scarcity in what looks like a sea of common coins. That is the beautiful paradox of numismatics. A coin that looks utterly ordinary on its surface can be hiding extraordinary value for the person who knows how to look, and every single time you hold a 1984 D quarter, you are holding potential. Keep watching because the upcoming coin we are revealing next has a twist involving a dramatic proof collection sale at heritage auctions that absolutely shocked the numismatic world, and the number will blow your mind. Next, the 1974 Washington quarter, and I want you to think about this for one moment, because 1974 was the year America was knee-deep in the oil crisis, watching gas lines snake around city blocks, and the United States Mint was working around the clock to churn out coins for a nation still running on cash in most of its daily transactions. And tucked inside the billions of quarters pressed that year across the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, there are a handful of survivors so perfectly preserved, so dramatically error-struck, or so exquisitely produced that collectors have paid absolutely shocking amounts of money to own them. And if you have a 1974 Washington quarter somewhere in your collection or your change jar, today is the day you learn whether it might be one of those hidden gems. Because here is the truth, while most 1974 quarters are still worth exactly 25 cents, the highest recorded auction sale for a mint state example of this coin hit $2,115 at auction in 2020, and the most extraordinary proof coin from this era sold for a jaw-dropping $10,925 at heritage auctions, which means this coin from one of the most common years of American coinage has the documented potential to buy you a used car. Let that sink in for a second. A quarter from 1974, a coin that billions of Americans spent on vending machines and parking meters, sold for nearly $11,000. Let us explore the full picture of what makes that possible. The Philadelphia Mint pressed over 801 million 1974 Washington quarters bearing no mint mark at all. Philadelphia had not yet adopted its P designation, which would come in 1980, making this one of the highest production years in Washington quarter history, and Denver added another 353,160,300 coins marked with the familiar D below Washington's ponytail ribbon, bringing total circulation strike production for 1974 to over 1.15 billion coins. Yet despite these staggering numbers, perfect gem quality survivors are genuinely rare, because the overwhelming majority of those coins went straight into commerce, getting battered and worn through decades of everyday use. An uncirculated MS-60 example might bring just $1 today, barely worth submitting for grading, but climb to MS-66 and you are looking at $38 or more, and beyond MS-67, these coins become truly scarce with prices that reflect that scarcity dramatically. The $2,115 hammer price achieved at auction in 2020 was for a breathtaking MS-67 plus graded specimen verified by PCGS, and it represents the pinnacle of what the circulation strike 1974 quarter can achieve when it has been preserved in flawless condition for over 50 years, which, given how many were made and how few people thought to set them aside in 1974, is an extraordinary feat of survival. Stick around, because the coin coming up next after this segment has collectors fighting over it for reasons you genuinely will not believe, and the value story involves a double-struck error so dramatic that auction bidders could not put their paddles down. But the real drama for the 1974 Washington quarter comes from the San Francisco Mint, which produced a special category of coin that most people have never even heard of, the proof quarter, struck exclusively for collectors using specially polished dies and hand-selected, mirror-finish planchets. San Francisco made 2,612,568 proof quarters in 1974, and these coins are immediately recognizable by their stunning cameo contrast. The raised design elements have a gorgeous, frosted appearance while the mirror-smooth fields reflect like a pool of still water. Three varieties of the 1974 S-proof quarter exist: the standard proof, the cameo proof with moderate contrast, and the deep cameo proof, designated DCAM by NGC, where the contrast between the frosted devices and mirror fields is at its most dramatic and beautiful. It is this deep cameo designation that drives the extraordinary value, because DCAM examples in the highest grades are genuinely difficult to find, and a top-tier 1974 SDCAM proof sold at heritage auctions in 2009 for $10,925, more than $10,000 for a coin that started life as a collector's set piece costing less than $1. If you are enjoying this treasure hunt, smash that subscribe button so you never miss a fortune hiding in plain sight, and drop a comment below telling us which your Washington quarter you are most excited to go search for. Now let us talk about the error coins, because the 1974 Washington quarter error market is genuinely exciting and features some truly bizarre and valuable examples. One of the most extraordinary is the wrong planchet error, cases where a 1974 quarter blank somehow ended up in the press fed with cent planchets, resulting in a quarter-sized design impression on a tiny 1-cent blank. These are so unusual that collectors go crazy for them, and a 1974 Washington quarter struck on a 1-cent blank, graded MS-64, sold for $1,050 at heritage auctions in 2020, not because quarters on cent blanks are common, but because they are practically impossible accidents that somehow escaped quality control, and each one represents a tiny, unique piece of manufacturing history. Another example graded MS-64 from the Denver Mint, a 1974 D quarter struck on a 3.09-gram cent planchet, sold for $1,150 at heritage auctions in 2011, because the Denver Mint error variety adds an extra layer of collectible appeal for a community of collectors who track these anomalies with the devotion of sports statisticians. The die cap error is another remarkable find in the 1974 series. This occurs when a struck coin gets stuck in the die and then strikes subsequent planchets, creating a deeply cupped coin with the normal obverse or reverse on one face and a negative mirror image on the other, like a coin that has been kissed by its own reflection. An MS-66 example of this rare 1974 error sold for $1,265 at heritage auctions, and when you look at one of these coins under good light, the dramatic concave surface tells the whole story of what happened inside that ancient press. Missing clad layer errors, where one side of the coin shows the exposed copper core instead of the usual nickel-clad surface, also show up in the 1974 series, though more modestly valued at around $90 for an MS-63 example. Here is where it gets really interesting for identification purposes, because the 1974 Washington quarter is one of those dates where condition is an absolute king in determining value. The difference between a coin worth $1 and a coin worth $2,000 is entirely about how well that coin was preserved, and that determination comes down to the microscopic texture of Washington's cheekbone, the integrity of the eagle's feathers, and whether the original mint luster flows unbroken across every inch of the surface. Use a bright light source and tilt the coin at various angles. On an uncirculated 1974 quarter, you should see the luster moving smoothly like flowing water across the fields, with no dead zones of flatness that would indicate even the lightest contact wear. Any 1974 quarter that shows absolutely zero wear and retains original luster deserves a closer look under magnification, and potentially a trip to PCGS or NGC for professional evaluation, because the difference between a coin worth $5 and one worth $2,115 might come down entirely to an expert's trained eye identifying a higher grade than you expected. Keep watching because the next coin in today's lineup has a value story driven by one of the most spectacular off-center double-struck errors ever documented on a Washington quarter, and the auction result will leave your jaw on the floor. Next, the 1996 P Washington quarter, and this one might just be the most sneaky, most deceptive coin in your entire collection, because 1996 was near the end of the original Washington quarter design era, just before the state quarter revolution launched in 1999 and changed American coin collecting forever. And the Philadelphia Mint pressed an absolutely enormous quantity of these quarters, 925,040,000 coins to be precise, nearly a billion of them, which means statistically speaking, there is a reasonable chance that right now, today, you have a 1996 P quarter somewhere nearby, and most people would never give it a second thought, but here's what the collectors and error specialists know that you are about to find out. This coin has sold for documented amounts that will make you want to immediately go check your change. The highest recorded sale for a 1996 P Washington quarter graded MS68 by PCGS, that is just 2 grades below theoretical perfection, sold at Heritage auctions in late 2012 for $1,998, which is essentially $2,000 for a coin from 1996 that your local bank would happily hand you in a roll of quarters today if you asked nicely. And the error coin market for the 1996 P gets dramatically more exciting from there, with documented examples involving double strikes, broad strikes, and wrong planchet errors that command even more impressive prices from the growing community of error coin specialists who follow this series religiously. But let us start with the fascinating context of why 1996 matters. This coin represents the twilight era of the original John Flanagan Washington quarter design, which had run virtually unchanged since 1932, 64 years of the same portrait of George Washington, the same heraldic eagle reverse, the same clean, dignified design that had outlasted wars, recessions, moon landings, and the entire Cold War. By 1996, coin collectors knew that change was coming. The 50-state quarters program had been in discussion, and it would launch just 3 years later, so in retrospect, the 1996 P represents one of the final massive productions of a design that defined American coinage for over 6 decades, which adds a layer of historical significance that serious collectors absolutely appreciate. Hit that like button if this history is blowing your mind and share this video with anyone who handles pocket change, because they absolutely need to see what we are revealing today. The mintage of 925 million coins from Philadelphia alone in 1996 is a staggering number, and it explains why circulated examples are worth just face value in most conditions. But here's what PCGS data reveals that is genuinely surprising. Even with nearly a billion coins struck, examples grading MS66 and above are far rarer than you might expect, because the vast majority of those 925 million quarters were released immediately into commerce, where they began accumulating the tiny contact marks, bag marks, and surface abrasions that downgrade them below collector threshold. The coin needs to have been preserved essentially from the moment it left the mint press to achieve the elite grades that command premium prices, and for a coin this common, that kind of survival is genuinely rare. In MS67, the 1996 P becomes challenging to locate. PCGS notes there are hundreds graded in this condition, but that still represents a tiny fraction of the original mintage, and in MS68, you are talking about genuine numismatic trophies with price tags to match. The $1,998 Heritage auction sale in 2012 was for exactly such a trophy coin, and the collector who paid that price was essentially paying for the near impossibility of finding a nearly perfect 1996 Philadelphia quarter after almost 3 decades of the coin's existence. Now let us get to the errors, because the 1996 P has some genuinely jaw-dropping documented error coins in its record books. A 1996 P quarter double struck with the second strike 96% off-center, certified 58 Australian dollars by PCGS, is one of the most dramatic era coins in the entire modern Washington quarter series, and it has appeared at heritage auctions multiple times because of how visually stunning it is. Imagine a quarter where nearly the entire design appears twice on the same coin, with the second impression dramatically offset toward the rim, leaving a ghost image of Washington staring at you from an impossible angle. The broadstrike errors, coins pressed without the retaining collar, resulting in an unusually wide, thin coin that spreads beyond normal dimensions, have also been certified and sold for significant premiums, with a 1996 P broadstrike graded MS65 by PCGS appearing at great collections. Wrong planchet errors add another dimension, with at least one documented case of a 1996 P quarter struck on a nickel planchet, creating a coin of entirely wrong size, weight, and thickness that defies casual identification. Off-center strikes are documented across multiple grades, and a 1996 P quarter that was 15% off-center graded MS67 by NGC sold in mid-2024 for $296, which is impressive for what looks like a minor error but represents genuine collector demand for well-documented, graded abnormalities from this era. For identification purposes, the 1996 P carries its mint mark just to the right of Washington's hair ribbon on the obverse, a small, clean P that should be sharp and well-defined on uncirculated examples. The coin's composition is the standard clad construction used since 1965, a pure copper core sandwiched between two layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel alloy, giving the coin its characteristic silver appearance despite containing no silver at all. The edge is reeded, those tiny parallel ridges around the perimeter that were originally designed to prevent coin shaving back in the silver era but remain a design tradition to this day. When examining a 1996 P for potential value, tilt it under a strong incandescent light and look for cartwheel luster, the flowing, spoke-like pattern of light that rolls across an uncirculated coin's surface as you rotate it, and check the high points of Washington's portrait for any traces of friction or wear. Any coin showing that perfect flowing luster across every surface, with Washington's hair detail crisp and the motto "I in God We Trust" fully struck in bold, is a candidate worth examining more carefully under a loupe. The double die obverse variety for 1996 quarters, showing noticeable doubling on Liberty or the date visible to the naked eye, has not been catalogued as a major variety comparable to famous DDO errors from earlier eras, but minor doubling visible only under magnification can add $5 to $15 in value, and any significant doubling visible without tools could command $50 to $150 or more from the right buyer. Subscribe to the Coin Merchant right now because the final coin we are about to reveal is the absolute grand finale of today's video, and the auction story attached to it, involving an amusement token, a crazy coincidence, and nearly $16,000, is one of the most incredible tales in all of modern American numismatics, and you absolutely cannot miss it. Next, the 1983 D Washington quarter, and I have been saving this one for last because the story behind the most extraordinary 1983 quarter ever documented reads less like a coin collecting story and more like something a Hollywood screenwriter dreamed up on a particularly inspired afternoon, so settle in, because what you are about to hear is 100% real, verified, and documented in the official records of one of the world's greatest numismatic auction houses, and when we get to that moment, the moment involving an amusement token and a message that seems almost impossibly perfect, I guarantee you will have to stop and reread it because it will feel too extraordinary to be true. But first, let me set the stage for the 1983 D Washington quarter, because even before you hear the most famous story, this coin from the Denver Mint has a fascinating and underappreciated place in American numismatic history that every collector needs to understand. The year 1983 was a watershed moment in United States coinage for a reason most people have never been told. The U.S. Mint did not produce mint sets for general sale in either 1982 or 1983. Which sounds like a small administrative decision but had massive consequences for the collector market, because mint sets are one of the primary ways that high-quality, uncirculated coins get preserved immediately after striking and passed along to collectors in pristine condition. Without those sets, the billions of coins produced in 1983 were almost entirely released directly into circulation, and the result is a date that is far scarcer in true gem condition than its enormous mintage would suggest. In the first edition of 100 Greatest U.S. Modern Coins, the definitive reference for this area of collecting, authors Scott Schechter and Jeff Garrett included the 1983 P. Washington quarter as the 29th greatest modern U.S. coin for exactly this reason, recognizing that the combination of high mintage and no mint set preservation creates a genuine rarity at upper grade levels that rewards careful searching. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of 1983 quarters bearing the D mint mark, and the finest known Denver examples in the registry have been graded MS-67, with the auction record for a 1983 D Washington quarter at that grade sitting at just over $1,400 set in 2016, and another MS-67 example selling for just over $1,300 in 2018, which represents a stunning premium over face value for a coin that looks essentially identical to the common quarter sitting in your pocket right now, and the only difference is the invisible story of perfect survival written in the coin's immaculate surface texture. But here is where the 1983 series gets truly legendary, and this is the story I have been building toward. Southwest, lean in close, because you need to absorb every single word of this. Among the 1983 Washington quarters produced at the Philadelphia Mint, there exists a coin so utterly unique, so impossibly bizarre, so perfectly ironic that numismatists still talk about it in hushed, reverent tones at coin shows and auction previews. It is designated in the official records as the 1983 P Washington quarter overstruck on an amusement token. It was certified MS-65 by NGC. It is ranked number 65 in the 100 greatest U.S. error coins published in 2010, and it sold at heritage auctions in 2014 for $15,862.50. That is nearly $16,000 for what started life as a carnival token. But here is the part that makes this coin absolutely mythological in collecting circles, the part that sends chills down the spine of every numismatist who hears it. The amusement token that was accidentally fed into the U.S. Mint's quarter press still had its original design clearly readable through the overlying Washington quarter impression, and that design featured a four-leaf clover motif and the legend, "Are you ready for this? This is my lucky day." A U.S. quarter was accidentally struck on a token that said "This is my lucky day," and the resulting coin, worth $16,000, became one of the most celebrated error coins in American numismatic history. If that is not a cosmic wink from the universe, nothing is. Can you imagine being the person who discovers that in a jar of old coins? The sheer absurdity and perfection of it is almost too much to comprehend. Slam that like button and subscribe to the Coin Merchant right now, because this kind of story, this level of historical drama and numismatic magic, is exactly what we bring you every single time, and the next video could feature the coin sitting in your own collection without you even knowing it. Let us talk about what else the 1983 series offers, because the Lucky Day coin is the crown jewel, but there are other valuable varieties hiding in this date. The 1983 P Spitting Eagle variety is one of the best-known Washington quarter varieties in the entire modern series, earning its colorful name from a die clash error, an event that occurs when the obverse and reverse dies slam together without a planchet between them, leaving a transferred impression on each die, and on the specific reverse die that created the spitting eagle. This clash produced a raised line extending from the beak of the eagle downward through its neck and into the wing feathers, making it appear as though the bird is literally spitting in magnificent defiance. Both PCGS and NGC recognize the spitting eagle as a distinct variety worth significant premiums. In circulated grades like XF40 or XF45, this variety brings $1 to $2, already 4 times to 8 times face value, but in mint state grades the story becomes dramatically more interesting, ranging from $40 at MS63 to $500 at the highest known grade of MS66+, and the visual drama of that little raised line from the eagle's beak makes this one of the most fun varieties to search for with just a loop and good lighting. There is also the wrong planchet category for 1983 quarters, with at least one documented 1983 P quarter struck on a 5-cent nickel planchet, creating a coin with the same design but entirely wrong dimensions, weight, and physical characteristics, that sold for $1,650 at heritage auctions in April 2005. Off-center strikes from the Denver 1983 production have also appeared at major auctions, including a dramatic 40% off-center 1983 D quarter graded MS64 by NGC that sold for $1,116 at heritage in 2005. Imagine a quarter where Washington's entire portrait has been shoved dramatically toward one edge of the coin, leaving a huge blank crescent on the other side, and you are picturing exactly what that coin looked like, and why someone was willing to pay over $1,000 for it. For the error collector, the 1983 D is particularly exciting because the absence of mint sets means any high-quality error that survived from this year represents a genuine piece of history that was never supposed to make it this far. These coins were destined for cash registers and vending machines, not velvet display cases, and the ones that somehow escaped that fate are treasures worth hunting. To identify potential value in any 1983 D quarter, begin by checking the mint mark placement. That D should appear clearly below the ribbon knot in Washington's hair on the obverse, then tilt the coin under strong directional light to assess luster. The typical 1983 quarter actually shows some weakness in strike quality, particularly in the lettering. Look for softness in the IN of In God We Trust, which reflects the fact that the hub dies were reaching the end of their service lives by this production run, giving even mint state examples a slightly soft appearance compared to earlier Washington quarters. This inherent weakness makes a sharp, fully struck 1983 D gem even rarer and more valuable when you find one, because the stars had to align for both perfect preservation and a strong strike to coexist in the same coin. Watch for die cracks and die cuds, raised lines or blobs on the coin's surface resulting from cracks in the die metal, which can add modest premiums but are worth documenting and researching, as particularly dramatic die crack varieties occasionally get catalogued and recognized by the major grading services, instantly adding collector value. And of course, keep your eyes open for any coin that seems somehow wrong, too light, too small, unusual color, design off-center, anything that makes you stop and say, that is not quite right, because not quite right is the beginning of every great error coin discovery story. The current market for 1983 D Washington quarters in premium grades is healthy and growing, driven by a new generation of collectors who have discovered the modern coin series and recognized the specific scarcity created by that fateful absence of mint sets in 1982 and 1983. These are coins that look ordinary, that most people would spend without hesitation, but that carry an invisible premium for the person who knows what to look for, and that, right there, is the most exciting thing about this entire hobby. You do not need to dig through ancient coins in museum archives, you do not need a specialist's vault or a dealer's Rolodex, you just need to know what to look for, and right now you have that knowledge, so go check your coins. Go dig through that drawer, that jar, that old collection your aunt left you, because somewhere out there a 1983 D Washington quarter in MS-67 condition is waiting to be discovered, and an error coin from this year carrying a bizarre and beautiful story is still out there for the collector who looks carefully enough. The numismatic world is proof that ordinary objects can carry extraordinary value, that 25 cents can be worth $16,000 when the universe decides to write, "This is my lucky day," on it, and that is why coin collecting is one of the most thrilling, life-changing, genuinely accessible hobbies on earth. Subscribe to the Coin Merchant right now because every single video we make is packed with exactly this kind of hidden treasure knowledge. Hit that like button if today's videos have you looking at your pocket change completely differently, share this with every single person you know who might be throwing away a fortune, and drop a comment below telling us the most interesting coin you have ever found, because this community is incredible, this hobby is incredible, and your next discovery could be right there in the change sitting in your car cup holder. We will see you in the next video.